Are we ready to finally accept that the torch is being passed in New Orleans? As the legendary era of Cameron Jordan begins to fade, the real news is that Chase Young must now step up and anchor our defense under Brandon Staley's new scheme. This shift is the turning point for our championship aspirations, marking a definitive change in how this unit must operate to stay competitive. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Smash that like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city below. Let's get into it. As we watch the legendary career of Cameron Jordan begin its slow sunset in New Orleans, the franchise is facing a vital turning point regarding its defensive identity. The primary news circulating around the organization is that Chase Young must now step up to fully embrace the alpha role within the defensive scheme crafted by Brandon Staley to elevate this team to a true championship contender. Since joining the Saints, Young has served as a critical piece of our pass rush rotation, showing flashes of his immense potential while acclimating to the culture here in the Crescent City. Fans care deeply about this development because we have witnessed Jordan anchor our defense for so long, and the prospect of a new leader emerging is both exciting and nerve-wracking. This is not an official breaking news announcement from the front office, but rather a clear organizational projection based on the current roster construction and the tactical evolution required under Kellen Moore. The emotional reaction from our fan base is a mix of nostalgia for the past and a desperate hunger for that next great defensive anchor to take charge. And honestly, it is high time we stop waiting for a miracle and start demanding high-level production from our top-tier assets to keep our Super Bowl window open. While the expectation is clear, the pressure is mounting for Young to prove he can command the locker room and perform consistently when the game is on the line. This shift brings us to a pressing question that could define the entire 2026 season. If Young struggles to seize this mantle, do we have enough depth in the rotation to prevent a total collapse on the edge? Or is the entire defensive strategy essentially hanging by a single, untested thread? The absolute most surprising reality for the Saints today is that the defensive identity is shifting entirely onto the shoulders of Chase Young. This transition arrives because the legendary Cameron Jordan, after years of anchoring our pass rush, is clearly entering the final chapter of his illustrious career. We are witnessing the passing of the torch, a move dictated by the urgent need to stabilize the front seven under the specific tactical vision of Brandon Staley. History shows us that New Orleans thrives when our defensive line dictates the tempo, much like the championship units of the past that forced opposing offenses into predictable patterns. This is where it gets real, because the front office is betting heavily that Young can finally replicate his early career production and become that dominant force we desperately need. Behind closed doors, the coaching staff is likely banking on the fact that the scheme under Staley provides the structure required to unlock Young's full potential without overextending his capabilities. They recognize that relying solely on veteran presence is a fading strategy, and bringing in fresh, explosive talent is the only path toward maintaining relevance in a highly competitive division. While we have seen talented pass rushers arrive with high expectations in the past, the difference here lies in the tactical environment being built specifically for this defensive front. If this experiment fails, the ripple effects will be felt across the entire roster, as the investment in the pass rush is the engine that keeps our secondary off the field and keeps games manageable. We are asking a lot from a player who has faced his fair share of adversity, but in the NFL, you are only as good as your next snap, and the window for this team to compete is closing faster than anyone wants to admit. The hourglass is running low on the Cameron Jordan era, which means the mantle of leadership must pass to Chase Young immediately if we expect to contend for a title under Kellen Moore. This transition represents a fundamental shift in our defensive identity, moving away from relying solely on veterans toward a scheme built for speed and relentless pressure. And I'll be straight with you, this move is non-negotiable because our championship window is far smaller than some might hope. The impact on the roster is significant, as Young is now tasked with anchoring a front seven that must evolve to survive the modern landscape of the league. We are looking at a complete retooling of our pass rush assignments and specific depth chart adjustments that prioritize younger, hungrier players over the comfortable veterans of the past. This strategic pivot changes everything for our upcoming schedule, especially when we face opponents who rely on quick-release passing games that have frustrated our secondary in recent seasons. By forcing the issue up front, we dictate the terms of engagement rather than waiting for opposing offenses to pick us apart from the pocket. This adjustment directly affects our standing within the division because we simply cannot afford to trade scores with our rivals anymore. We need to stifle their rhythm early and dominate the trenches to secure those critical wins necessary for a playoff berth. Strengthening this unit is the only way we keep pace with the rest of the conference as the calendar rolls forward. If we can get this pass rush operating at maximum capacity, we turn a collection of individual talents into a unified championship-caliber defense that refuses to yield ground. It is time for the new guard to step up and prove they have the resolve to carry this proud organization forward. As Cameron Jordan enters the sunset of his storied career, the burden of leadership shifts toward a revitalized Chase Young within the defensive scheme crafted by Brandon Staley. The strongest argument for this pivot is the potential for Young to finally anchor the pass rush as a true alpha defender, creating the necessary chaos to force turnovers and control the line of scrimmage. If he can command double teams, the entire defense benefits from improved spacing and flexibility. Think about it this way: the upside is having a centerpiece that opposing coordinators must account for on every single snap, which is the hallmark of a championship-caliber unit. However, the inherent risk remains that Young may struggle with the transition to such a prominent role after his previous stops. Critics and analysts across the league have expressed skepticism regarding his durability and consistency, noting that he is currently part of a defensive transition that includes other names like Isaiah Foskey and Peyton Turner, who are also fighting for critical snaps. Media outlets are split on whether this transition will be smooth or a season-long headache. While the prospect of a dominant defensive front sounds fantastic, here's where I land on this. I believe the narrative that Young will automatically dominate is a bit overblown given his recent injury history. Expecting him to immediately transform the entire identity of the Saints is a tall order that ignores the collective effort required from every player on the roster. What I really think is that we need to see actual game production before we crown him the savior of this defense. If the coaching staff manages his workload intelligently, we could witness a resurgence. But assuming success without seeing it on the field is a mistake. Let us stay grounded until the pads actually start popping in September. As we look toward the future, the direction of this franchise depends entirely on moving away from the past and embracing a new defensive identity. With the legendary era of Cameron Jordan beginning to wind down, the burden now shifts squarely onto the shoulders of a revitalized Chase Young. We need him to step up and finally embrace the alpha role within the tactical scheme designed by Brandon Staley. And here's why that's a big deal. For years, we have seen this team rely on veteran stability, but to become a true championship-caliber unit, we must have a dynamic force leading the front seven. You should feel a sense of cautious optimism heading into this season, because this shift signifies a commitment to modernizing our defense rather than clinging to aging stars. By pivoting toward a more aggressive, scheme-driven approach, we are finally positioning ourselves to dictate the pace of the game instead of merely reacting to what the opposition does. This transition is not just about one player, but about building a culture that demands excellence from the next generation of leadership in the locker room. We are watching the foundation of a tougher, more resilient Saints team that knows exactly what it takes to survive in a competitive league. We have to decide if we believe this change is enough to bridge the gap to a title. Do you think Chase Young will record at least 10 sacks while taking on this new alpha responsibility in Brandon Staley's defense this year? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Who Dat? I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to drop a comment below sharing your bold predictions for this upcoming season, as I love reading all of your unique insights.